today we have two amazing guests from Teen Line. We have Cheryl Eskin, our Chief Operating Officer, and Steen, a Teen Line listener and a junior in high school. Teen Line is a nonprofit nationwide teen help hotline that's based out of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, California. So welcome, Justine. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you for just about Teen Line. Tell me a little bit about the origins of Teen Line, either of you. How did it start?
Well, we started in 1980 based on the premise that when teens are struggling, they turn much more to the peers in their life than the adults. A lot has changed since 1980, particularly technology-wise, but that premise still holds true. And every year we train about 60 to 80 Los Angeles-based teens to be what we call listeners to their peers on our hotline. Our hotline is text, email, or phone call. We also have a message board. We have social media, a website, all kinds of different ways to reach out to us. And Justine is one of our listeners, so she can obviously tell you more about that experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. Justine, can you tell me about how you got involved in Teen Line?
Yeah, so my brother was actually a Teen Line listener before me. He's 4 years older, and then my mom did it a really long time ago when she was a teenager. So it's kind of like been a family thing, but we all just really care about mental health, and that's kind of something I've been interested in for a long time. So it was right up my alley, and I decided to become involved.
That's awesome. Yeah, so you've had a lot of experience with your whole family has been doing this important work. That's great. Can I ask a little bit about how you prepare for this role? Is there training for all the teens? I know there's like 60 or 80 of you. So do you have to go through certain hours of training?
Yeah, so when you first join Teen Line, you have a pretty rigorous training session. It depends on which training group you join, but I did it over the summer. So I had a few, it was all remote when I did it because of the pandemic, but I had a few Zoom meetings a week, and it was like a really condensed training session. And every Zoom session we would have like a different topic, a different mental health topic that we'd learn about. And then by the end of it, you're prepared and you have like all these skills that you didn't have in the beginning, and you know a lot about the resources and just like how to talk to people and how to get people help that they need.
That's awesome. How has it been working with teens and listening to them on the other end?
It's been really cool. I've definitely become a much better listener, and it sounds like kind of scary in the beginning when you first start and you don't really know what it's like in the hotline room. But like as you train and as you have your different practices and you get more comfortable with the people in the room, it gets a lot easier and it becomes like really comfortable, and it just feels like you're having a conversation with a friend sometimes because it's so casual, and the people calling in know that you're a teen, so there's no pressure to be like super stern and professional. They just really want someone to talk to, and so it's really great.
That's great. It's not like us as adults feel like we always need to know all the answers.
Yeah.
And so it almost like you're like a peer with them. So it's not, don't have to know everything.
Yeah, exactly.
One common question for the both of you is what happens if there's something that's a little more serious? Does it get escalated, or how do you both handle that situation? Like say somebody's on the other end and they're thinking about hurting themselves or killing themselves. How would you address that?
Yeah, I mean, what Justine kind of alluded to, so our teams do a 65-hour training, and then after training, they spend a lot of time preparing to be on the hotline, doing what we call role plays, which are mock calls or texts. They do 15 of them on different kinds of topics, like someone who would be suicidal or someone who's being abused. So they have practice before they actually get on, these calls or texts. But that being said, we do have adult mental health professionals who are in the room with the teens at all times, who are able to provide support or crisis intervention or just debrief. I think our teens, I mean, and Justine could probably talk more about it. Someone calling into a hotline, even if, there's a teeny tiny part of them that may want some help, even if they're really desperate and really not wanting to be here. And I think what's amazing is our teens are really good at connecting with that part of that ambivalence or that hope, just that teen to teen relationship where we often can de-escalate the situation. And they are, it is amazing to see. I don't know if Justine's had any calls she can think of, but it's amazing. Sometimes a person starts to call like up here, and then by the end, they're really de-escalated. And we do always, particularly in those types of calls, refer to other resources as well, like if there's someone in real life, because obviously someone who's that suicidal or really struggling needs more help than the hotline can provide.
Yeah.
Sorry, Justine, I don't know if you have anything to add. That was a long answer.
Yeah, so if there's like a few topics that if we hear like the signs of during a call or during a text, because we also do text conversations, we'll like flag an RA, which is one of like the adult supervisors, and we let them know, and they're always listening in on the calls, and so we always have like a second ear, and they can like send you notes, or if you're on Zoom, they'll send you messages telling you like certain topics or certain like things you have to cover on the call, to get information out of them and to make sure that they're safe. And so if you're really concerned, if you don't know what to say, you can always ask an RA. And I've never had an active suicidal call where I really have to like de-escalate them from that, but I've gotten some pretty intense calls about child abuse and things like that. And people will call in and they're super overwhelmed and they're crying and they can barely talk. And then by the end of it, they're way more calm because you give them all these resources and like skill sets that they didn't have before, and they just feel really relieved at the end of it.
That's amazing. I have a follow-up question for you, Justine. Is there, I assume there are some challenges that come in your phone calls. What are some of those things that have there been certain stories or experiences that you felt have been kind of tough for you, or a little bit of a challenge during some of those calls?
Yeah, something that is pretty hard for me is if someone calls in and they're being like bullied at school. That's really tough for me because a lot of the time it's like people are just really mean, and it's hard to like tell them what, or not what to do, but tell them how they can get support, because it's just like a really tough situation to be in. So just like finding support for them at their school or like different programs, it's difficult, but it's also really relieving to like, because those people, they just really want someone to be able to talk to. And so just talking to them is helpful for them, but just like finding resources for that, and finding solutions can be kind of challenging.
Yeah, thank you. So let's transition into the different resources that TeenLine offers. What are some of the things that first a student calling in or a teen calling in could access? And then I'm asking more than one question at once, but the second question would be, what are some resources you think like educators or a teacher or a principal could use? You can go ahead and break down each question as you want or as you like.
Yeah, I mean, for a teen, our website is teenlineonline.org. And so if you're, if you are a teen, you can find the different ways to reach out to us on the hotline. And I also think we have some information on what it's like to reach out to the hotline, because that can be anxiety producing to people as well. Like, what's going to happen? What can I expect?
Who
Who am I calling? Yes. And other kinds of resources as well. Email might be easier for some people as well. It's not as direct. So maybe that's an easy step. We also have downloadable materials, which are for students or for educators, principals, about a variety of different topics. So a teen could see that as well if maybe they want to find out more about suicide or an eating disorder, and links to, we have something we call the Youth Yellow Pages, which is a resource guide that is an app for Android and iPhone, which has all kinds of resources all over LA County. So if you're looking for some kind of specific resource, you can definitely find it there.
Yeah, it's really good. I think I've passed out some of your downloadable material, some flyers that we've shared with some educators too. And then
Oh, fabulous.
this Yellow Pages app, that sounds really great. Is it like accessible? Is it targeted for teens? Is it targeted for anybody?
It's probably, I mean, it's for anybody. It's more geared towards teens because that's our, focus group, but it also could be helpful for a parent or an educator or a principal who is looking for a resource that is teen specific.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, definitely we'll make sure we get all that information. We link it. One question, almost the last question, but do you, either of you have any advice for educators or anything that you feel like would be helpful for them to know, being in this position where you're supporting a teen who's calling into this crisis hotline?
Yeah, so I think if you're trying to support your students or just like peers at school, I think just letting them know that there's like no pressure involved in talking about your problems, and it's not a punishment. You're not in trouble for feeling certain things or going through or getting in certain situations. And the people on the other end of the line, our main goal is just to get you help and to help you feel better. And the people around you, your counselors, your teachers, they just want you to feel good and feel safe, and be able to reach out for help. And it can feel really scary if you're not really used to talking to people and you're not very close to the people around you maybe, and you don't really lean on others for support that often. But it seems daunting, but the people on Teen Line and around you really just want the best for you and want to be able to get you the support.
That's great. That's great.
And I would just add one thing too. I mean, especially I think we hear this from college. You never underestimate the role of a teacher in helping a teen's life as well. I mean, some teens, particularly, I'm thinking like the Justine's example, a teen who's being bullied or might not have a safe place at school. Maybe there's a teacher they connect with who maybe one day a week they eat lunch in the teacher's room, or the teacher opens up the space after hours or something like that. Just not underestimating the role that they can play. And you don't have to be a mental health expert or a trained teen listener like Justine to be that support person, to let someone know that you do care about them and can guide them to appropriate mental health support if that's what they need.
That's perfect. So Teen Help is open which hours? When is the hotline open?
We are 6 to 10 Pacific time for phone calls, 6 to 9 Pacific time for texts. Gotcha. And email is, I mean, we answer during our hours, but you can email us 24/7.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. So last question for the both of you. How do you each practice self-care? How do you take care of yourself?
For me, when I practice self-care, it's really just about like having alone time where I'm not really thinking about like my responsibilities, and I kind of put that to the side and I just focus on letting myself feel better. So just like hanging out in my room and watching a show, I think counts as self-care, and just kind of letting myself just relax and refresh before I get into my responsibilities.
Great. Thank you, Justine. Alone time and relaxation. Got it. And Cheryl?
I'm going to ditto those two. I think TV and binge watching is underestimated for how helpful it can be sometimes. I also say exercise, like walking has been and I never thought I'd be a person who said that, but walking has been my salvation during the pandemic. Just sometimes particularly when we were all really stuck at home, like being able to get outside and fresh air and, move my body has really been a salvation for me.
Awesome. Yeah, I just want to thank you both for sharing and for the roles and being there for teens. So yeah, thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Justine, for joining us today. And keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right.